You know, I don't like waking up to a dirty kitchen.
Who cares?
I care, all right? I care.
At 57, Jennifer Aniston has everything the world once promised would bring happiness. Fame. Fortune. Freedom. And yet, what she's actually living today is far more complicated and far more shocking than the glossy headlines ever suggest. For decades, Jennifer was sold as America's sweetheart, the woman who had it all, the one who made love, laughter, and friendship look effortless on screen. But behind the red carpets, the laughter tracks, and the perfectly timed smiles, a very different life was quietly unfolding. A life shaped by relentless pressure to marry, pressure to have children, pressure to explain herself again and again to a world that refused to let her simply exist. Every year that passed without a husband or baby became a headline. Every personal choice was turned into a public failure. And slowly, without most people realizing it, Jennifer Aniston became less of a person and more of a projection. But here's the truth no one wanted to hear. Jennifer wasn't broken. She wasn't lonely. She wasn't missing anything. What she was doing was rebuilding, quietly. At 57, Jennifer's life looks nothing like the fairy tale Hollywood once promised her. Instead, it's something far more radical, controlled, private, intentional. She has pulled away from expectations, rewritten what fulfillment means, and learned to live without performing happiness for anyone else. And that choice came at a cost: lost relationships, public misunderstanding, and years of emotional exhaustion that she never spoke about until now. Because what Jennifer Aniston is really living today isn't the life of a woman who ended up alone. It's the life of someone who finally chose herself. And once you see what her days actually look like now, how she lives, who she trusts, and what she's deliberately left behind, you'll realize why this chapter of her life shocks people more than any scandal ever could. This isn't a story about heartbreak. It's a story about survival. Long before the world knew who she truly was, Jennifer Aniston was already living inside a box someone else designed for her. It was a beautiful box, a profitable one, but it was a cage all the same. From the moment she became a household name, Jennifer wasn't just an actress, she became a symbol, the embodiment of charm, warmth, and effortless relatability. The girl next door who felt familiar even when she was untouchably famous. Hollywood loved that image, the public demanded it, and Jennifer learned very quickly that stepping outside of it came with consequences. Every smile was analyzed, every relationship was ranked, every life choice was treated like a public referendum. The industry didn't ask who she wanted to be, it decided for her. When Jennifer reached the peak of her success, the narrative hardened. She was no longer just talented. She was expected to represent a specific version of womanhood, one that married at the right time, one that started a family on schedule, one whose happiness followed a script that made sense to everyone watching from the outside. But real life doesn't follow scripts, and Jennifer's never did. Behind closed doors, she was navigating something far more complex than the tabloids ever acknowledged. Fame magnified every insecurity, success amplified isolation, and the constant demand to be grateful left no room to admit exhaustion. She learned to smile through it, because in Hollywood, likability is currency, and Jennifer Aniston was priceless. What the public didn't see was how early she learned to self-edit, to soften opinions, to downplay ambition, to deflect personal questions with humor. Vulnerability was allowed only in controlled doses, never enough to make people uncomfortable, especially when it came to motherhood. As years passed, curiosity turned into accusation. Interviews became interrogations disguised as concern. Headlines implied deficiency, failure, even sadness, whether she felt those things or not. Jennifer wasn't just living her life, she was constantly defending it. And the cruel irony? The more she protected her privacy, the more the world assumed something must be wrong. Hollywood reinforced this pressure quietly but relentlessly. Roles offered to her were safe, familiar, repetitive. The lovable woman searching for love, the heartbroken wife, the character defined by relationships rather than inner life. Breaking away from that image risked rejection, and Jennifer knew it. So she adapted. She stayed successful without becoming threatening, independent without being labeled difficult, private without being invisible. It was a balancing act few could maintain for decades under global scrutiny. And yet, even as she mastered it, something essential was being eroded. Her right to exist without explanation. By the time Jennifer reached her 50s, the image the world had created for her felt frozen in time, youthful, cheerful, incomplete without a partner. Meanwhile, the woman herself had evolved. Her priorities shifted. Her understanding of fulfillment deepened. But the narrative didn't evolve with her. That gap between who she was and who she was expected to be became the quiet tension shaping her life. This chapter of her story isn't about a scandal or a breakdown. It's about invisibility, about how a woman can be one of the most recognized faces on earth and still feel unseen. Jennifer Aniston wasn't running from love, family, or happiness. She was running from a version of herself the world refused to let die. And that struggle, subtle, exhausting, and deeply human, set the stage for everything that came next. Because when you spend decades living up to an image, eventually you face a choice: keep performing. Or finally step out of frame. By the time Jennifer Aniston reached her 40s, something quietly devastating had happened. She stopped being asked questions. She was expected to provide answers. Every interview followed the same unspoken script. Success was acknowledged briefly. Then came the real inquiry. Why wasn't she married? Why didn't she have children? Was she happy? The repetition wasn't curiosity. It was judgment wrapped in politeness. Jennifer learned to anticipate it, to prepare responses that sounded light, humorous, unbothered. She deflected with grace because resistance would only fuel speculation. But inside, the toll was real. Imagine being forced to justify your life to strangers, again and again, for decades. What made it worse was the assumption behind the questions: that her life was incomplete, that something essential was missing, that joy required validation through marriage or motherhood. No matter how successful she became, her accomplishments were treated as secondary. Her personal choices were framed as gaps that needed explaining. Fame didn't protect her from loneliness. It amplified it. Jennifer's world became crowded but emotionally narrow, surrounded by people, yet rarely understood. Love for what she represented, not who she was becoming. And when she withdrew to preserve herself, the withdrawal was interpreted as sadness. Silence became evidence. What few people recognized was how carefully Jennifer had built her boundaries. Privacy wasn't avoidance, it was survival. She limited access because exposure had proven painful. Every time she shared something personal, it was reshaped, sensationalized, or misunderstood. So she stopped offering pieces of herself for public consumption. But that choice came with consequences. Distance can protect, but it can also isolate. The constant narrative about her loneliness became self-fulfilling in a way no one acknowledged. The more the media insisted she was alone, the more cautious she became. Trust narrowed. Circles shrank. Not because she lacked love, but because love, in her world, required safety. And safety was rare. Jennifer's romantic life became public property long before she was ready to discuss it honestly. Relationships were dissected in real time. Breakups were treated as entertainment. Healing happened under a microscope. Over time, something shifted inside her. She stopped trying to correct the narrative. Let them think what they want. She seemed to decide. Because explaining herself never brought peace. It only invited more questions. At 57, the shock isn't that Jennifer Aniston lives quietly. It's that she learned to. Her days are no longer structured around approval or expectation. She chooses companionship selectively. Friendship over performance. Stillness over constant explanation. Loneliness didn't disappear. It transformed. It became something she managed, instead of something imposed. The public sees absence and assumes emptiness, but absence can be intentional. It can be rest. It can be healing. Jennifer's life today isn't defined by who isn't there. It's defined by who is, and by the calm she's fought hard to create. This chapter reveals a truth many miss. Fame doesn't make loneliness disappear. It often makes it louder, and learning to live with that, without hardening, requires a strength few recognize. Jennifer didn't fail at the life the world expected her to live. She walked away from it. And that quiet decision changed everything. There is something deeply unsettling to the public about a woman who stops explaining herself. At 57, Jennifer Aniston has done exactly that. No dramatic announcement. No manifesto. Just a gradual withdrawal from noise and a deliberate turn inward. For years, silence was used against her. If she didn't respond, the world filled in the blanks. If she stepped back, assumptions rushed forward. But at some point, Jennifer stopped correcting the record, not because she had nothing to say, but because she was done performing clarity for people committed to misunderstanding her. What she built instead is a life that doesn't photograph well. There are no constant sightings, no staged intimacy, no curated chaos. Her days are intentionally ordinary, structured around wellness, trusted friendships, creative work, and solitude that feels chosen, not imposed. That kind of life unsettles people because it can't be easily categorized. Hollywood prefers transformation arcs, reinvention stories, redemption through romance or motherhood or public confession. Jennifer offered none of those. She simply opted out. She learned that peace didn't arrive through explanation. It arrived through subtraction. Fewer interviews, fewer public appearances, fewer emotional disclosures. Each boundary reduced access, and with it, entitlement. The result? A woman who appears distant, but is deeply grounded. Jennifer's inner circle today is small and fiercely protected. These are people who knew her before fame distorted everything, and people who understand that proximity doesn't require exposure. She doesn't expand her world to appear full. She curates it to remain safe. That choice came after years of emotional fatigue. That being endlessly relatable had cost her privacy. Being endlessly kind had invited intrusion. And being endlessly patient had taught others that her boundaries were flexible. They weren't. So she made them firm, and firmness, especially in women, is often misread as coldness. But this silence isn't bitterness. It's clarity. Jennifer still works, still creates, still laughs, but on her terms. She selects projects that align with her values rather than her image. She prioritizes process over visibility, growth over approval. That restraint terrifies people who need public validation to feel real. Because Jennifer's life suggests something radical. That fulfillment doesn't require constant witnessing. Her shock factor at 57 isn't scandalous behavior or tragic decline. It's contentment without spectacle. That kind of peace forces uncomfortable questions. If she's okay, without what we were told she needed, what does that say about the story we've been sold? The discomfort isn't about Jennifer. It's about the challenge her life presents to expectations that still govern women's worth. She didn't replace one narrative with another. She dismantled the need for one altogether. And in doing so, she reclaimed something rare in modern celebrity culture: invisibility without irrelevance. This chapter marks the moment people misunderstand most. They mistake quiet for withdrawal, stillness for sadness, independence for isolation. But Jennifer's silence isn't absence. It's presence turned inward. And the world doesn't quite know what to do with that. At 57, Jennifer Aniston is living a life many once feared for her. Quiet, unattached, unexplained. And yet, when you look closely, nothing about it is tragic. What's revolutionary is not what Jennifer has lost, but what she has refused to sacrifice. She did not sacrifice her autonomy to meet expectations. She did not sacrifice her peace to appear fulfilled. She did not sacrifice her truth to satisfy a story that never fit her. For decades, the world insisted there was a right way for a woman to age, love, and measure success. Jennifer's life was used as a cautionary tale, a warning about waiting too long, choosing wrong, or prioritizing selfhood over partnership. But at 57, that cautionary tale has unraveled. Because Jennifer is not searching. She is centered. Her days are shaped by intention rather than obligation. Wellness is not a trend for her, it's a necessity. Boundaries are not walls, they are filters. She invests energy only where it returns calm, not chaos. And perhaps most radical of all, she no longer corrects misconceptions. She allows people to misunderstand her if it means preserving her inner life. That choice would have terrified the younger version of herself, who felt responsible for maintaining likability. Now, likability is irrelevant. Peace is not. Jennifer's relationships today are not loud or performative. They are rooted in longevity and trust. She values history over novelty, depth over volume. The people who remain in her life are there because they've earned it, not because they enhance her image. This is not retreat. It's refinement. Her career, too, reflects this evolution. She chooses work that aligns with where she is, not where she's expected to be. Roles that explore complexity instead of youth. Projects that challenge rather than reassure. There is power in that. Selectivity. But the true shock of Jennifer Aniston's life at 57 isn't professional or romantic. It's philosophical. She represents a version of womanhood that doesn't apologize for being complete on its own terms. A woman who has lived under constant observation and emerged, not hardened, but clear. That clarity unsettles people because it suggests that fulfillment doesn't come from ticking boxes, it comes from rejecting. Then Jennifer didn't end up anywhere. She arrived, and arrival doesn't always look like celebration. Sometimes it looks like stillness. Sometimes it looks like stepping out of the spotlight without disappearing. Sometimes it looks like choosing yourself again and again, even when the world insists you should want something else. The final irony? The same culture that once pitied Jennifer Aniston now studies her life with fascination. Because beneath the quiet, there is something many secretly crave. Freedom from expectation. Her story isn't about heartbreak. It's about liberation. And that's what truly shocks people. Not that she's alone, but that she's enough.